Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Well, I hope you're starting to maybe warm up where you're at. It's I think a whole whopping 19 or 20 degrees here right now, but the sun's out, so it feels warmer at least. We might break the freezing mark around maybe Sunday or Monday, it looks like. So hopefully we'll start seeing some melting of all the snow, and then we get the wonderful mud to deal with. For those of you that live out in your little farms and homesteads, you know what that's like. So just in the last few days, we have the president saying that, you know, black and brown people just aren't able to use the internet. And Bill Gates says that, well, we should all be eating synthetic printed meat. There's activists saying that we should just pay criminals to not commit crimes. And of course, the poor people of Texas, they're just covered in snow and frozen water pipes and food shortages and gas shortages. And now they're going to have to be dealing with extremely high utility bills because the prices of utilities now have increased about 10,000% because of this snowstorm. That's right, 10,000%. So the average household utility bill could be in the neighborhood of $3,000+ for 1 month of usage. It's absolutely insane. The Texas Agricultural Commission issued a red alert warning on their food supply, agricultural and food supply. And we're only hearing this right now out of Texas, but remember, most of the United States has been affected by this frigid cold weather. Of course, it seems to have affected Texas the worst, mostly because it's not normal for them to get this kind of weather. I mean, this is more unusual for them, so they're a little bit less prepared. But the cold and the snow has certainly blanketed the vast majority of America, and especially the areas where food production is made. And they're saying in Texas, the Agricultural Commission is warning that this will be a bigger hit on the food supply system than all of the health crisis so far. Did you hear that? Bigger than all the health crisis so far. They are dumping $8 million a day in milk because the farmers are milking, but they have no place to send the milk because so many of the plants have shut down because of lack of electricity, difficulty in transportation, getting it there. So that's just one thing. I'm hearing reports from all the way from Montana down to Texas of the amount of cattle, especially calves, that have died because of this. The difficulty it's going to put, even just a little hiccup in the system because of basically putting a pause on the system. It's going to be pretty large, folks. And this is something that we've been talking about for a long time. We talked about it quite a bit back when the health crisis first started. And remember back then the amount of processing plants and stuff that were shutting down because everyone was terrified that they were, you know, going to pass around some illness. And while we still have a food supply system, I don't think anyone could say that it's back up to where it once was. And certainly the food prices are increasing. And they're going to increase. Everything's going to increase. You know, since the president took office, gas prices have gone up anywhere from 20 to 40 cents a gallon. And they're saying just because of this weather, we could see another 10 to 30 cents a gallon increase. A lot of the big refineries down in Texas, which is where a vast majority of our gasoline is refined, had to shut down because of the frigid temperatures. And of course, you know how it goes. It all trickles downhill. Crude oil goes up, fuel goes up, transportation costs go up. And that means your food and everything else, the prices are going to go up. That along with shortages and just all of the other stuff going on. Hopefully, people are starting to realize how fragile the system is. Not just the food supply system, but the grid. You know, for us preparedness-minded folk, whatever you want to call yourself, one of the big things that we talk about a lot and that we prepare for a lot is a grid down, a grid failure. Well, guess what? That's what Texas has had. For those of you that do not know, in this little graphic will kind of show you, there's basically 3 central grids in the United States: East, West, and Texas. Texas has their own grid system, and that's the grid that collapsed. Over 1/3 of utility customers in Texas lost power at the peak of this. So they had a significant grid failure in Texas. And if nothing else, this can certainly be used as a learning tool of what to expect when the other grids fall. And it's a little, it's not going to be it's not as bad now as it could be then, because they're working on fixing it. And I would say over the next few days, the vast majority of Texans will have their electricity back up again, because there's already every day, hour by hour, more and more. And with the rest of the country still running pretty good, there's a lot of aid being sent down there and shipping being sent down there to help resupply. It's slow going, but it will happen. What happens when the entire grid, the whole system, crashes and there's no other part of the country to really help pick up the other part? So what you're seeing is a microcosm of the devastation that could happen if the grid fails. And I know I've been talking about this snowstorm and the weather in Texas a lot in the last couple of days, but folks, I cannot think of a better learning tool than what's happened right now in recent months, maybe even more so than the entire health crisis combined, because we're seeing the cascading effects of what's happened. It's not just that the people in Texas have been cold and without power and without water. We're seeing water pump and water treatment plants closing down. There's been boil water orders all over Dallas area because of the lack of power to run the water treatment plants. And how are the people supposed to boil their water if they don't have electricity? And that's assuming they can even get water through their pipes. You see the problems here? Have you seen the amount of stores that are completely bare? I mean, absolutely nothing on the shelves. There's videos out of Austin, Dallas, and Houston areas showing empty stores far worse than we've seen with the health crisis and probably any hurricane in recent memory. They're just completely dry, gone, nothing's there. The lines for people waiting to get food, the burden it's put on the health system because there's been people that's been nearly struggling for life because their machinery that keeps them alive may not be working because there's no electricity, and they've been struggling to get generators in to keep these people going. It's been a big catastrophe, and I think as it's going, it's still pretty new, and so we're learning about it a little bit more every day. But I suspect once this is kind of over and things really start thawing out, that we'll really see how big this disaster has been. And I hope that each one of us, learn from this. And for you folks in Texas that are enduring this, I hope that you're doing okay, and I hope that the skills and the knowledge that you've picked up over the years and being more prepared has come through with this, because this is truly an SHTF. There's also something else that I suspect. Remember back about a year and a half ago when Michael Bloomberg and a bunch of the anti-gun lobby seemed to just be hell-bent on attacking the liberties of the people of Virginia, and the governor there and the far-left faction of the state legislature were passing some of the craziest gun laws, or at least trying to, and some of them did get passed, in Virginia, a state that was once very conservative. And a lot of people were wondering, why in the world Virginia? I mean, this kind of stuff would be expected in California or New York or Connecticut or something like that, but Virginia. And I believed then, and I still believe now, that the goal is of the left. They know that they have control of these far left, states. They want to show that they can come in to a conservative state. And if they can bring one down, they know they can start bringing a lot of them down. And what bigger conservative state, or at least symbol of conservatism, far right, gun-toting, Bible-thumping, traditional value state can you find than Texas? Or at least that's what a lot of people believe. And I think they believe if they can show that Texas can be brought down, than just about any state. If you go back just over the past year and look at the things that's happened with the health crisis and other things that's gone on, it's kind of shocking that it's happened. Some of the stuff has happened in Texas. Look at the total vote, the amount of people and a lot of liberals moving into Texas from California. The state is almost starting to look purple. And so this is kind of a warning, and I'm not putting Texas down at all. Not one bit, but it's kind of a warning, especially for you Texans. I believe in my heart that there's a little miniature war going on against Texas by the left, because they know that if they can bring Texas down, if they can flip Texas to a liberal state, then they know that they could take on just about any state in the union. So if you just notice some of the policies and the reactions by the government, even the Republican governor that they have, I kind of think that that's a possibility of what's going on. But that's kind of almost a subject for another video. The main point of this video is that we're seeing what a grid failure would do. I mean, we've seen the blackouts and brownouts that's happened in California over the past few years. But I don't recall when we've seen such a wide portion of a state and such a high population during a crisis within itself, just the weather, a weather-related emergency, where the grid and all the things surrounding the grid that start cascading downward, shuts down during a major emergency event. And we're seeing how people are running out of food, how they're struggling to get water, struggling to stay warm, struggling just to stay alive. And we need to take this serious, folks. If you do not have things stocked up, if you do not have food put away, you certainly need to do so. You can do that through, the best thing is to grow it yourself and to can it. Go to the store and buy canned foods, buy dry goods, grains and rices, beans, and all assortment of other foods that you can put on your shelf and have a year or two supply of food put back. It's probably a good idea to also have some long-term food, like freeze-dried food. If you're interested in that, there's a link in the description below to My Patriot Supply, which is a company that I've partnered with, and they offer some of the best quality and best price per calorie food you can find on the market. And this stuff will last anywhere from 25 to 40 years if it's stored properly. It takes very little to cook it because it's already cooked, it's freeze-dried, and it's a good backup to have. You also need water, and you need a way to purify your water. Have some type of filtration devices. You need to have the things on hand to get you through the crisis that we're seeing happen more and more. The weather is getting crazy. Not just with Texas and the amount of frigid cold that we have experienced all across the United States. Record cold all over. Over 70% of the United States was blanketed in snow. But that's not just here. The Middle East is covered in snow, many parts of it. They've had snow in Saudi Arabia, and Jordan, and Egypt, places that they've not seen snow in over 50 years out in the desert, not just up in the mountainous regions, out in the desert. Greece has recorded the coldest temperatures and the most snow that they've received in 4 to 5 decades. The odds of this happening more often are looking pretty good, folks. This is the year, 2020. 2020 was the year to wake you up and to make you realize how serious things are in the world and how fragile our world is and how fragile the systems are that are around us. 2021 is the year to get your hind end in gear and get prepared. My opinion, and it's just my opinion, it should be a very high priority in your life. Get your household ready, get it prepped up as much as you can, get your mind and your body ready, get your soul ready, because the world is changing and it's changing rapidly. And I don't think that it's changing in such a good way, and we cover that often on here. And so my, I guess, plea to you is to take the things that's happened over the last month and use it as a motivation tool and a learning tool to get your house in order. Because whether it's snow or extreme heat or geopolitical problems, new administration wanting to destroy the economy and every personal right that we have, the world is changing, and you need to get ready for it. You need to start prepping up, getting yourself as self-sufficient as possible. I still encourage everyone that is able to, as much as possible, get out of the big cities. They are traps, if there ever was one. Get out of the big cities, get you a piece of land, learn how to grow food, learn how to be as self-sufficient as you can. You don't have a lot of time. You know, if this was 10 years ago, you could kind of take your time and learn it year by year, but you got a lot to do over the next year or so, because I think the days are becoming less and less of the time that we have ready to get ourselves prepared before we just can't prepare any longer. So stay on top of what's going on in Texas and use it as a learning tool and see how things are happening and what is falling apart because of it and how the people are reacting. Because if that was on a grander scale, it would probably be like that, just many times worse. So sit down with your family. Come up with a budget. Figure out what you can do every month to put back. Figure out the skills that you need to be learning. Figure out if it's even possible for you to get out into the country. It's a lot cheaper than you think. It's hard work, but it's doable. Because folks, the world that you grew up in, the America that you once knew, I don't think it exists anymore. The Great Reset has happened, whether we like it or not. And now we have to learn how to survive through it and thrive through it. And finding ourselves as self-sufficient as possible and building a network amongst other self-sufficient peoples is probably one of the best ways that you can survive and thrive through this. All right, folks. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.